Hey everybody, Edwin the Magic Engineer again, and I'm here because some of you asked me to discuss what Bitcoin and all these cryptocurrencies and this crazy stuff actually is. I did a video a little bit ago talking about some of the negative points of Bitcoin, and I didn't really talk very much about like what cryptocurrencies are, because there's already so much other content out there. I didn't really think there was much value in me just being yet another guy on the internet talking about it. But then I had so many people keep saying, like, can you describe what it is? I don't even know what you're talking about. This is all just nerdy gibberish to me. So I figured I would just have a quick video, go over it, and we'll see how it turns out. So there's a few points I want to discuss for Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency. The first thing to know is it's basically just a form of money. It's a currency, and you can exchange it. But like the United States uses dollars. In China, they use the RMB. You know, in London, they use the pound, things like that, the British pound. But Bitcoin, it's an electronic currency that anyone in any country can use, and you can exchange it with anyone, anywhere in the internet. So I've got two people here. We've got Joe and Bob, and let's imagine that Joe and Bob want to buy something normally with dollars. Well, what's going to happen is, Bob's going to have some neat item that he's got. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a box of magic cards or something. It's really cool. Bob's very happy with it, and it costs like $2, right? And over here, Joe has some Bitcoin that he wants to give to Bob, so Bob can actually, finish the exchange and give him the item back. Well, the first thing that has to happen in the cryptocurrency is each of them has to actually get a Bitcoin wallet. And it'll be on each of their computers will have a wallet, and it has like their own addresses and stuff. And so Bob will give Joe his Bitcoin wallet address so he can send it. And then Joe will basically put in the amount of Bitcoin he wants to send, transfer it over. And then when Bob can see that his wallet now has that Bitcoin, then he'll hand the item to Joe. So that's how they'll do that exchange, where in the past there used to be just a bunch of cash on one side or another. But this wallet is it's an important thing. Like, you have to have that electronic wallet. Part of the design for Bitcoin was that people were going to be able to do this like from their smartphone and stuff. That hasn't actually really panned out very well because of the size of things that have to be stored. But on that note, I'm not going to get too nerdy with this. A lot of people usually do get really nerdy and they start talking nerd language. And if I do that, then it's not going to make any sense, and that's probably why like some of these other videos just failed to explain it to people. So I'm going to keep it real down-to-earth kind of terms. You probably hear my dogs in the other room. They're in there having fun. So anyways, both of them have to have that Bitcoin wallet to actually do that exchange. So the important thing to realize is they always draw this little coin thing here when they're talking about Bitcoin. You see this little symbol, but there is actually nothing you hold. Bitcoin is 100% electronic. It doesn't actually exist. It's nowhere, right? It's just digital bits that exist on the internet, right? And everybody has a wallet, and everyone's wallet has to talk to everyone else's wallet and agree with who has money and how much it actually has. That's kind of how Bitcoin actually works. That's the whole blockchain thing that other people talk about, but I'm not going to go into that. So anyways, it's 100% virtual, and let's see. Also for Bitcoin, there's only ever going to be a certain amount of it that's ever going to exist. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin that are ever going to exist ever. And right now, we don't actually quite have 21 million. They started at 0, and then they're working their way up there because there's something that has to happen to bring the Bitcoin into existence, and it's called mining. And the concept of mining is kind of like an old school concept that you would think of for mining, where imagine you have just like, you have the ground, you have a bunch of dirt, right? And then somewhere inside of the dirt, deep down, you've got a bunch of little coins, Bitcoins inside of them. And when you have a computer, what's happening is the computer is kind of chewing away down in the earth, right? It's digging a hole to try to get down and find those Bitcoins. That's the mining process. And the computers do that by solving math, right? So if you want to mine Bitcoin, you basically have your computer go math, 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 and then it'll sit there and it'll dig, and then eventually you might discover a Bitcoin, or I think they're found in blocks of 50. So if your computer finds a Bitcoin, then that thing that I was mentioning before, your wallet, will receive those Bitcoin in it. And now those Bitcoin are no longer there for anyone else in the world to actually go discover because you've actually got it. So as time goes on, people's computers kind of chew away, just dig down until they unbury all the 21 million Bitcoin that are ever going to exist. The reason why that was created to be like that is they didn't just want to like just create Bitcoin and just give it to somebody. So like the creators of it would have all the Bitcoins and all the money in the world would flow to them. They didn't really want to do that. They wanted people to actually put effort out to go get the Bitcoins. They wanted them to come into the world at a certain speed, and that's why they created the mining thing. And there's something else they put into the mining. The more Bitcoin that actually come out, the more difficult it becomes to actually do the mining. So I suppose I shouldn't have erased it, right? All those Bitcoins that are way down at the very bottom, the very last ones of the 21 million that are all down here at the very bottom, these ones are going to be really hard to mine out of the ground. In fact, it's going to be a really long time before anybody digs those ones out. Because the farther down you go, the more difficult they become to mine, and therefore the slower and slower they come into the world. And so that's kind of the purpose of it, just to bring them all into the world slowly. Hopefully that all makes sense. So the Bitcoin, they're not all just like one Bitcoin. You can actually take a Bitcoin and split it into a whole bunch of parts. In fact, I think that the ratio is you can have 100 million Satoshis is the name of the smallest unit of Bitcoin. So 100 million Satoshis equals 1 Bitcoin is the smallest unit that it can possibly be. So with a current price of somewhere around, as I make this video, $2,400 per Bitcoin, I think the math works out somewhere to like 416 Satoshis equals 1 penny is about the smallest unit that you can actually get. So that's honestly pretty small. So you can divide them down quite a bit when you're trying to transact them with people. So they're not just like 1 Bitcoin. So basically you can take 21 million and divide it by 100 million Satoshis, and then that's like how many of the smallest units that are going to exist out there. So that's something else to know about it. Another thing to know about Bitcoin is people like to consider it really, really safe, right? You know, that's one of its whole values that everybody talks about. Oh, Bitcoin is never going to be cracked. It's super safe. You know, let's draw it in a safe here. Make sure everybody knows it's in a safe. You know, got a little dial on it. On here. So it's intended to be really safe, but it's not completely safe. But it's not because like people are going to crack the code of Bitcoin. It's not going to get cracked. The Bitcoin code is really, really, really secure. You're not going to crack it. There's other things that threaten Bitcoin, some of which I talk about in the other video. In fact, let's see, which way am I looking? If you guys look up here, I'll try to link it, and maybe it went to the other side. We'll have to see afterwards. But anyways, yeah, it will be on this side. I'll put a link over here on this side so you guys can go to my other video where I talk about the problems with it. But they're not completely as safe as everybody wants them to actually be. I'll go into that at least a little bit in this video. So the Bitcoin, since they're not safe, they are in fact risky, and people are talking about like rushing into them right now. They're kind of cool, they're kind of a fad and stuff like that, but you got to be really cautious if you put your money into Bitcoin. Another thing to know about Bitcoin is backed up by the strength of the internet. So you have this wonderful thing here. As long as the internet is up and running and the world is connecting to it, and remember, this is millions of computers around the world, right? Lots of people. As long as this exists, then you can always connect to it and you can access like your Bitcoin, right? Because the Bitcoin is not just stored on your wallet. Remember what I was saying, this gets copied to everything else. So once you do a transaction and you've got some Bitcoin, the rest of the internet now knows about how much is in your wallet. It's all secure everywhere. So unless the internet goes away, Bitcoin is not going to go away. It's pretty secure from that perspective, definitely. Another thing to talk about is that the value of Bitcoin, it's going up massively right now. And that's something that really needs to be considered. When the whole thing first started, Bitcoin was worth like a very small amount. I mean, like one Bitcoin, I remember when my friends first started talking about it, was worth like maybe like 2 pennies or something like that. It was not worth very much. And it was kind of a neat experiment. And there's stories out there of people trading like 1,000 Bitcoin and buying a pizza or something like that, because it didn't hardly have like any value. But remember, the Bitcoin was meant to be like a currency. It was meant to be something that people can use that doesn't require governments or central banks, and you can exchange value for value. And so it had a really small value initially. And then over time, what started to happen is that value started like spiking up. And every time it would like spike up and then come down, people would be like, oh, Bitcoin crashed. It's not going to be worth anything anymore. Then it would go up again and then it would crash. And people are like, oh, it's not going to be worth anything anymore. That just seems to keep happening. And so how long is that going to go on? Nobody knows, right? But a lot of people that are invested in either other cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin are into it because they want that value to keep going up. So they grab onto their Bitcoin and they just hold onto it really tight and they don't actually spend it or anything. But that's also one of the things that's really dangerous about it, because if you were the guy to come in and buy Bitcoin at the peak here, and let's say that peak is its current price right now of $2,400, right? And you come in and you drop like 10 grand and you buy like 4 Bitcoin and you think you're really awesome, right? And then all of a sudden, some either a better cryptocurrency comes out, or people just decide, I don't really like this. This is kind of garbage. It could just go to nothing, and then you've lost all your money that you put into it. If the world doesn't use it, it goes to nothing, because they're 100% virtual, like I was saying. They don't actually exist. It's all electronic. And if the rest of the world just suddenly decides, I don't really want it, then it just goes away. There's just no more Bitcoin anymore. And that's a big risk with it, actually. Anyways, that's some basics about the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies. And I know you guys noticed I put some cards up here and stuff like that. It's just, I thought that was fun. And I was inspired by Rudy, you know. So Rudy, if you're watching this, like, that was for you, man. That was funny. I just wanted to do a little bit of Rudyism, but yeah, I won't do that stuff anymore. I just thought it was fun. Anyways, if you guys have any other questions about cryptocurrencies or about any of the other stuff I've talked about, just put them below. I'll try to answer your comments as they come in. And other than that, if there's no other comments that come in, I'm probably going to move on from cryptocurrencies, and I'm just going to start going back into other topics that I'm real passionate about. So thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in, and I'll see you guys later.